Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
Why don't you wait until July 1st to make an announcement? What a disgrace. He can rack up all these numbers in October, November, and December, but what really counts is let me see this in January.
The sports rebel without a pause, delivering fast-paced, jam-packed sports talk like no other.
Listen, I gotta call it as I see it. He is not a good player. I'm sick and tired of having to deal with the disappointment of this franchise. When does it stop? And yes, another winter that I can sleep in peace. Coming correct, direct, and in full effect. Let's get it.
This is the JAYREELZ podcast. Welcome aboard.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic and excellent spirits as we close in on the first week of March, but not without a big podcast as I detail all that's happening in the world of sports as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with your host, JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard. And for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle even, as early as this past Monday, I welcome you guys and gals back. And it's good to have a live podcast, which is now what? Maybe the 7th or 8th that I've done. So for those who are going to be in the chat room, please leave a comment, but I'm not going to get to it until we get to the top of the next hour. So even if you happen to jump on board and you leave a comment, please, if you have to step away, come back because I will answer it in the following hour. So where I'm at, it's just about a shade after 11 a.m. So in the 12 o'clock hour, I will unpack that. So just keep that in mind as we move it along. But for the podcast itself, when we get to now the deep end of the pool here, when it comes to both the fall and winter sports with the NBA and NHL, and the NHL has a trade deadline tomorrow, and I have a very interesting theory when we talk about tanking, and is the NHL kind of on the low with their tanking, not bringing it up? Is there a situation where could we actually pinpoint the NHL as we've seen it with the NBA as far as tanking goes? I'll talk about that in the next segment. But for now, I want to start with the NBA because there's starting to be a little separation when it comes to teams that have put themselves in good position, whether that would be in for playoff positioning or a scenario with the play-in tournament where teams have now found their way to a point where it's going to be a formality that these teams are going to make it into the playoffs, which in the big picture means you're not going to have a lot of drama. And what we like to see is drama, especially down the stretch of any season for that matter, whether it be baseball, NFL, etc. But for the NBA and what I've been able to gather here over the last really 48 hours is that when you look at the Eastern Conference, and I'll start there, we get it that the 7 through 10, they are long shots to go deep into a playoff run. And although there have been exceptions over the years, I've talked about Miami in 2003 as an 8 seed going all the way to an NBA final. And in that same year, the Lakers had to play out of the play-in tournament, and they got to a conference final where they lost to Denver. We understand that they're not going to be long for the first round, dare I even say a second round, but how it's shaping up here is with the Charlotte Hornets and the Atlanta Hawks both going on runs here to the tune where now they have pretty much put the Milwaukee Bucks in the dust. And this is with Giannis coming back into the mix. Giannis, who had been out with that calf injury, came back there on Monday against the Celtics where the Celtics blew him out. And then they played Atlanta last night where the Hawks beat them up. And now they're looking at a situation where they're 4 in the loss and 5 games back of that final 10th spot in the Eastern Conference. And I don't know if the Bucks are going to start clicking at some point where Giannis is going to have to average pretty much 35, 15, and maybe 10. He's going to have to put up Nikola Jokic numbers here in order for them to get into the playoffs, which is a shame because you want to see a player like Giannis in the postseason. He's an exciting player. He's a great player, former two-time MVP, back-to-back MVP for that matter. We know about the finals, etc. But it's certainly looking like the Eastern Conference, and the same could be said for the West too, but you're going to have the Pistons as a 1. You're going to have the Celtics right now. They're going to battle out with the Knicks, for that 2 spot. And I don't know what happened last night. And let's throw Charlotte back in this equation because they have played phenomenal. And in fact, let me see what their low watermark was this year. Because after they annihilated the Celtics last night, and that was just unbelievable. And think about this as I pull up their numbers. They are now 32-31. They're a game over 500. Their low water mark of the season, and I can't even believe I'm going to say this because who would have thought that this turnaround was in store? Do you know that on January 8th, 2 months ago almost, because right now it's the 5th, this team was 13-25. Since then, do the math. They are 19-6. Charlotte Hornets that have had no success, even dating back to the days of when they were the Bobcats. Now, I'm not going to go back to when they were the Charlotte Hornets of the 80s when they came in as an expansion team and then, of course, built their team through the draft, whether it was Larry Johnson, Alonzo Mourning, etc. But this new iteration that were the Bobcats first when they had Emeka Okafor, if you remember going back to 2004, and then it became the Hornets. I mean, this has been a turnaround that is beyond unexpected. And after blowing out the Celtics last night, and I don't know, maybe they took them lightly. I mean, that was a thrashing where they killed them. Was it 108-90 or 10? What was it? No, 118-89. I know at one point it was 109-81, and I said this game's over. And they think about that. They beat them by 30. And are the Hornets going to be taken seriously? Now, we got to wait and see because right now, as currently constituted, they have the 10th seed, the 9th seed in the East. And the Hawks have played well, too. They've won 5 in a row, and they also have the same record at 32-31. Now, could they push Orlando and Miami? Listen, they're just 2-3 in a loss back with Orlando having the 7th seed right now. It is not out of the realm of possibility. Now, could it even go up as high as where the Sixers are? Now, they're 3 games. I mean, think about it. Orlando, 28 losses. The Sixers have the 6th seed with 28. I can't say right now that I'd be shocked if the Hornets, maybe the Hawks, I'd be shocked. But with the way the Hornets have played here since the early part of January, would I be shocked if they're a 6th seed when it's all said and done? I can't say I would be. Now, the one thing I'd worry about with a young team like the Hornets, would they run out of gas here? And not only that, if they were to get into the playoffs, would they be dumb enough to be like, hey, we're just playing our brand of basketball and we're just going to keep flowing and going and that's it? Or will they look at it like, oh, now we see this is why it is the NBA playoffs? Obviously, we still have another month and change to chew on that, but you got to give it up to what they've done. And that's where the separation comes in because your 10 seeds in the East are pretty much set. Now, obviously, we got to worry about where they land when it's all said and done because even with the Celtics, 6 back of Detroit. Now, Detroit's going to be entrenched in the 1. That's not going to budge by any means. Celtics, Knicks are going to be interesting. I know that Cavs are hovering around there too. Then you have the Raptors and Sixers. See who wants to avoid having to play the Pistons in the second round because think about it. The 4-5 is going to play the 1-8 winner, and we would think that the Pistons going to win that first round series. Cleveland, Toronto is going to play Detroit, which I think could be a good series. And we saw Cleveland beat Detroit the other day. And obviously, with the Cavs, I know the broken thumb there or the fractured thumb for James Harden is going to give him any shot. But you know how I feel about Harden, not to go down that road. But that's what you have in the East. And in the West, I get it that you have that jumbled mess from 3 to 6 where those 4 teams are separated by a game and a half, 2 in the loss. Rockets are currently in third place. T-Wolves, Nuggets, and Minnesota's played well here as of late. And they're going to be dangerous, obviously led by Anthony Edwards. Nuggets have stumbled here a little bit, but in a blink of an eye, they could be a 3 seed. And that's the thing, too. You'd want to avoid having to play Oklahoma City in the second round. Now, if you play them, so be it. But you'd rather be that 3-6 team, because if you do end up winning that series, now chances are you got to play San Antonio, but you'd rather play a young, inexperienced, although on the come-up Spurs team than play the defending champ. So that's one of the things that we're going to look at here down the next 5 weeks of the season, whether or not if you're a 4-5, that's it. But you would think you want to do your best to try to get that 3 seed, considering 4 teams are jockeying for that position. And if you have the 3 seed and stranger things have happened, let's say the 7 seed knocks off San Antonio, then guess what? That 3 seed has home court in the conference semifinals. So, and listen, you would think San Antonio is going to win that first round series, but like I said, even with all that young talent and a young head coach in Mitch Johnson, listen, can Phoenix go up in there and beat the Spurs? I can't say they will, but they'll have a little attitude, especially if they're healthy. Devin Booker won't back down from the challenge. Dylan Brooks, I know he's going to be flexing his muscles and salivating at the thought of pulling off an upset. And the Suns have overachieved this year. Unlike years past when they had Kevin Durant, a lot of people thought that they could be a threat to get to an NBA final. So stranger things have happened. Now, we would think it's going to be chalk, Spurs would win, but whomever's going to get that 3 seed is going to be, I think, in good shape because they would avoid Oklahoma City in the second round. And then you have Golden State. We know that they've been stumbling, bumbling, and fumbling. No Steph Curry, older team, traded away big pieces. I get it. They got Porzingis, but to me, that's another guy who's always on the shelf. You have the Clippers in Portland, and then after that, you have a 5-game drop-off, similar to what we have in the East, where the Grizzlies are playing up the rear, trying to see if they could scuffle and do their best to get themselves close to that 10 seed. But everything right now is seeding. And that's how the NBA is in this day and age. And you know what? You got to even look at the play-in tournament. Now, at first, I wasn't a big proponent of it, and I'm sure you guys, if you listened to me for many years or just started following, watching, etc., I'm a traditionalist, but I do like the play-in tournament because it does give, let's say in this case, the Warriors. Now, if it was the original format 1 through 8, they'd be the 8 seed right now, but at least you get an opportunity not only once, but maybe even twice if they do lose that first game against Phoenix. If the season ended today, they'd play them in that play-in tournament. But then they have the fallback to then have a home game to play the winner of the 9-10 play-in tournament game. And yes, I get it that they may not be long for the postseason, but it does add more inventory. It does bring more eyeballs to the sets. And when you look at those, especially in the West, you look at those 4 teams, Suns, Devin Booker, all right, Dylan Brooks isn't a star, but people will watch that. Golden State speaks for themselves. The Clippers, I get it that there's been a bit of a makeover there with Harden departing to Cleveland, but you still have Kawhi Leonard, and if he's healthy, he is certainly a guy that you want to watch. Portland, okay, they're a young team, but they're not really on anybody's radar, especially throughout, unless you're just a dying-to-wool NBA fan. But those are games that you'd watch. The East, I get it. Miami's a mainstay. Orlando's a young team, a good team. They were in the scenario last year. Charlotte, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to see how LaMelo Ball and Colin Kneppel and the Brandon Mills of the world, how they're going to perform on a bigger stage. Hawks, we've seen them in the play-in tournament a million times. I understand with Trae Young, and if Trae Young could keep himself from not getting ejected, as I believe he's going to debut tonight against the Utah Jazz as a member of the Wizards. But West, a little bit more sexier. East, not terrible. But those are playing games that you'd watch. Miami, Orlando, you would think would be a rivalry, but it's not. But the NBA right now, as we try to wrap our arms around it here over the last 5 weeks, and I'm going to be on top of it, but because there's not a lot of intrigue and there's not a lot of, who's going to try to get that 1 seed overall, I guess you could look at that if you're in Detroit or in OKC or even in San Antonio for that matter, because whomever has the best record out of those 3, they're going to have the home court throughout. And as it is right now, although the Thunder have the better winning percentage, 49-15, but the Pistons at 45-15, they have 4 games in hand. So they got some ground to make up. And who knows, if they end up getting the best record, they're going to have home court throughout. So even if that means OKC at Detroit, unless now Detroit has to go to OKC, and Detroit won the first game last Wednesday against the Thunder. If they sweep them, they're going to have the tiebreaker head-to-head. So, yeah, there's not going to be a lot to really chew on if you ask me. Unless you're going to have a scenario where out west, those 4 teams are going to battle it out for that 3 seed. Or, yes, you can look at Celtics, Knicks, and Cavs, that group to see who's going to get the 2 seed. But again, those teams are already going to be in the postseason. It's not like, whomever gets knocked out of that spot means that they're done. It's a win-and-go-home situation a la Steelers-Ravens week 18 of the NFL last year. You don't have that. So that's why there's not a lot of juice when it comes to the NBA in that regard. But overall, we're just counting the days to get to that point to where we know what's set, playing as well as the 1 through 6. And once we get to April, I guess it's the 18th, then it's away we go. And that's what I'll be looking forward to. And unfortunately, the NBA, the marathon of the season that it is, this is what it's come down to. You're just going to have to wait it out, see how these teams are going to, where they fall as far as the pecking order with the standings. And then once we get to that 3rd weekend in April, we're good to go. Now, I understand you got to get through the play-in scenario, the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. But that's what it is. That's how it goes. Now, I know last night you had the game there with OKC and the Knicks where Mike Brown, the coach of the Knicks, says that SGA is a guy that always gets the calls, convincing the refs of fouls, whatever. Well, hey, if you're a reigning MVP on a reigning defending champ, on top of being a guy that is probably in the running, although I believe he has a couple of games before he's ineligible, he has to get that 65-game threshold. He's going to get all the calls. He's going to get a majority of the calls. Sorry, if Jalen Brunson, who plays the contact as we've seen, and I'm sure he gets his fair share of calls. I'm not watching every Knick game, but yeah, SGA, you're going to breathe on him. He's going to get a call. Sadly, that's all there is to it. Now, does he deserve that? To an extent, he does because of what he's accomplished here over the last few years. But, all right, maybe it's a little bit too much. Maybe those calls are saved for guys like LeBron or KD or Steph Curry because they've been in the league a million years, where SGA, obviously by way of the Clippers and then building up to where over the last couple of years he's been a first-team All-NBA player. But still, he's not a slouch. So Mike Brown, maybe he's trying to do that to put it on notice, especially getting deeper into the year when you get to the postseason. And maybe, if he's getting all the calls, maybe a coach on the opposing team will clarify that again for the world to know. I don't know. But that's what you have there with the NBA. And as far as the schedule here over the next few days, see if we got any interesting games. I know you have the ABC games forthcoming this weekend, which I think you have a few good ones. Tonight, your Prime Video games, Golden State at Houston, Lakers at Denver. Two good games. I know Golden State, no Steph. Otherwise, you have Utah, Washington. I mentioned about Trae Young. Dallas, Orlando. Ugh. Games of note. Toronto, Minnesota, not bad. Detroit at San Antonio. That's right. This is where that stretch where, what was it? 5 of the 6 games that were played, or was it 6 of 7? No, it was 5 of 6. No, Yeah, 5 of 6, where Detroit played San Antonio and they lost. They beat OKC, split with Cleveland, and now they play in San Antonio tonight. To me, that should be a prime game. Get Golden State Houston out. Put Detroit San Antonio as prime. Chicago Phoenix. Yeah, that wraps it up there. Then tomorrow, Dallas at Boston, ESPN, followed by Clippers at San Antonio. Then you have Miami at Charlotte, Portland at Houston, Knicks and Denver. Good slate of games there. Excuse me, tomorrow night. On Saturday, prime, Orlando at Minnesota, Philly at Atlanta, NBA TV. Golden State at Oklahoma, that's your ABC Saturday night showcase. Then Utah, Milwaukee, LA at Memphis. Clippers, that is. And then Sunday, yeah, you got your lineup. 1 o'clock, Boston at Cleveland. Knicks at Lakers, 3:30. Detroit at Miami. Dallas at Toronto. Orlando, Milwaukee. Houston at San Antonio is your NBC Sunday night game. And then your Peacock later that night is Charlotte at Phoenix. And then you have scraps after that. So that is your NBA right out the gate. As far as the college basketball goes, now listen, you haven't had a lot here over the last few days. And as we know, 2 weeks from today, in earnest, the tournament begins. Everybody's anticipating that. And it's interesting because earlier in my podcast pregame, which I do have on a YouTube channel, 9:45 every Monday and Thursday, hop on board. I had a lot of great dialogue there with my guy Vic, Axel Foley. No, not Eddie Murphy, but Axel from Cincinnati. Shout out to you. And a lot of other newbies, as well as my diehards there. And you got to join the community, people, here on YouTube. You got to. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, of course, subscribe. Throw me a few stars, write a review there. But for those who aren't hip to the YouTube channel, get on board, people, because the community's growing. Shout out to J-Rod, Fishing Angel, Bio, Val, Toppers, of course, more recent. I don't want to miss anybody. My guy Fuqua, a.k.a. Tatsuya and Mai, as well as Rhoda Penmark, Dad's Chips, etc. He's got a bunch of AKs, people. You got to jump on board. You got to see what it's all about. I have a lot of fun. We talk sports, etc. But as far as college goes, yeah, there really isn't anything to – I know Kansas lost the other day to Arizona State. No surprise there. They're wildly inconsistent. And, yeah, your schedule this coming weekend, obviously you have your North Carolina-Duke game. That will be in Duke or at Cameron Indoor. And let me see what else. Yeah, everybody's waiting for what's going to happen next week, the teams that are on the bubble, the Miamis of the world, Ohio States, teams like that. And I'll get into more of that next week, especially next Thursday, because those teams that are going to start the conferences, and the conferences usually start Tuesday. Maybe I'll talk about that on Wednesday live stream, 12 noon Eastern on YouTube, where we'll take a look at the landscape, see what's going to happen with those teams that are on the bubble, who's going to get in, who may not, who needs to get to win a conference tournament or at least get to a final to possibly secure their bid into the tournament. So all that will take place next week. And as we know, rankings are still the same. Nothing has changed. So really, am I going to unpack that? We know Duke is number 1, followed by Arizona, Michigan. Now, the interesting thing is, and I've talked about this over the last few weeks, who's going to get that 4th number 1 seed? And right now you see UConn there. I think Florida could be that team, which I talked about on Monday on the podcast. But a lot could happen. I said Iowa State in my gut, but I know Iowa State lost, so they took a step back. So I don't know if it's going to be them unless they run the table in the Big 12. But, yeah, I think UConn has a pretty good shot here. Now, if they face St. John's in a Big East final, that's going to be fascinating because we saw UConn literally destroy St. John's where they couldn't even buy a basket in the last 17 minutes of the game, and they held them to 40 points. But because it'll be at the Garden, technically a home game for the Red Storm, if that is, what is it, a week from this Saturday, St. John's, UConn, that will be a fascinating Big East final because that's going to determine whether or not UConn's going to get a 1 seed. Now, if St. John's wins that game, they will not get a 1 seed by any means. Where are they ranked? Like 16th right now? I mean, maybe higher than that. If I take a look. 17th right now. They won't get a 1 seed, but if UConn wins, they may secure their bid to have a 1 seed somewhere. Probably won't be the East because that will be Duke, because you know the committee's going to favor Duke in that regard. It could be out West. We've seen 1 seeds from the East play out West, which is totally unfair. So, listen, we got a week and a half to chew on it. The Selection Sunday is on the 15th, which is a week from this coming Sunday. So let's see. And I think Florida could get a 1 seed also, especially if St. John's beats UConn. So just some permutations to think about as we get closer to the end of the regular season. And then obviously with the conference tournaments next week, there'll be a lot to dissect at that time. All right, now let me turn my attention, lace up the skates, and take a trip around the ice for the National Hockey League. And with the trade deadline tomorrow, you've had some minor deals. I know the Edmonton Oilers, they're trying to do whatever it takes. But here's the problem that I have with what Edmonton's doing. Now, they've made 3 trades with the Blackhawks. And I'm going to talk about them in a second. Something that not a lot of people are talking about. And although it's not in the makeup of this league to do so, but with the NBA getting pounded on tanking, I have a theory with a few teams in the NHL doing the same. But for starters, I know the Oilers have acquired a few players here over the last couple of days, and they want to do whatever it takes to try to get back to a Stanley Cup and win it. Now, they won't have to worry about the Florida Panthers, that's for sure, as we have seen them over the last 2 years lose to them in a Cup final. But whether it's the Blackhawks trading players, whether it's the Vancouver Canucks who have traded players here, and most recently to the Dallas Stars, they traded their defenseman to Dallas. Tyler Myers, not a big-time player, more of a stay-at-home defenseman. And the Rangers, you already know they're going to try to unload some of their guys, whether it's Vincent Trocheck, JT Miller, maybe even the goalie, Igor Shesterkin. I know my guy, J-Rod, I mentioned him before, out in Michigan, saying that the Red Wings need a goalie. Well, would they be interested in maybe Igor Shesterkin, the netminder for the Blue Shirts? And you're already seeing St. Louis make a trade. Colton Parayko, their defenseman, now being sent to Buffalo, which I think that's a very good move. Now, it's obviously they got to make sure they clear the physical protocol, make sure that he's good to go. And obviously he's in a walk year, so this was a rental. But the guy has won before, was on that 2019 Stanley Cup team, but the Blues. So you're bringing in a guy who is a top-flight defenseman, champion, knows what it takes to win on a team that has not sniffed the playoffs in a decade and a half. So I thought that was that was an excellent move by the Sabres there. Now, does that mean they're going to go on a run and win a Stanley Cup? No. But you got to have some veteran leadership in that locker room and some presence. And that's what Parayko does. So that could actually be, when it's all said and done, probably one of the better moves that you'll see. But obviously time will tell that. As far as the tanking, I know the NHL is not going to get knocked for this, and I know this may sound a little clickbaitish, and I don't subscribe to that by any means. But you got to hear me out, because the NBA, as we've seen, sitting out players, and the NHL doesn't do that. NHL does not believe in load management. God bless them for it. But when you look at the Vancouver Canucks, you look at the Rangers, and you even look at the Blackhawks, who are parting with players. And the Blackhawks actually played pretty well up until about probably the early part of January. And the same for the Rangers. Rangers got off to a pretty decent start, and they were near the top of the Metropolitan Division before they bottomed out. And now they're starting to unload players, Artemi Panarin, and let's see about the aforementioned Trocheck and JT Miller, and maybe even Shesterkin, the goaltender. But there is a player that's out there, although a little bit now checkered, but there is a player that, by all means, people are thinking that he could be the next generational player. And it's interesting because when you look at the last 3 drafts, especially the guys who've been picked number 1, Connor Bedard in Chicago, Macklin Celebrini in San Jose, and the Islanders with Matthew Schaefer, those guys have transformed their teams. Now, maybe not so much Connor Bedard, although we know he's a star, but Macklin Celebrini, the guy could be in the running for the MVP this year. He's not going to get it, but that's how good he's been. And San Jose, who got up to that dreadful start, has turned it around, and now they're on the fringe of making it into the Western Conference playoffs. And then Schaefer, I mean, the guy, if he doesn't win the Rookie of the Year this year, there needs to be an investigation. And he's certainly turned around the franchise, albeit they lost. They got blown out last night by the Anaheim Ducks. But now you have Gavin McKenna, who's a guy that a lot of people think he's going to be the next star. And even though he had some off-the-ice issues, was part of this scuffle that broke out at the end of a hockey match. And although he's been cleared, but he does have that on him as a young player, and he plays out of Penn State. But you have to think, when you look at the stretches of these teams where Vancouver, they've lost, I believe, 22 of the last 25 games. I know they're a bad team. And I know earlier in the season, they traded Quentin Hughes to Minnesota. So not to say they had their sights set on a dismantling of the team or a pseudo tank job, because right, when you're tanking, that means you're sitting out players, you're resting players on the bench, as we saw there with Utah a few weeks ago or 2 weeks ago against the Magic, I believe it was, where they had a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter and they didn't even play their starters. No Lauri Markkanen. They got in a trade, Jaren Jackson, before he got injured and is out for the rest of the year. So that is egregious. But with the NHL, of course, they'll never admit it, but the way Vancouver has just folded their tents, and even the Rangers, as I mentioned, and now they're in a stretch where they've lost, I believe, 14 of the last 17. And then the Blackhawks, 2-6-2 in the last 10. But I believe I was trying to do the math here prior to the start of this podcast. And let me see. I'll even go through it right now, just so I want to be as close to accurate and not put out anything that's erroneous. Got to hold, there's standards here, people. I got to hold myself accountable. But the Blackhawks, over the last 15, 16, however many games it's been, they're in a stretch where they have bottomed out as well. So here we go. Yeah, they have lost now. Yeah, that's 2-6-2. Wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3. I mean, look, they've lost 9 of the last 11 games. And prior to that, lost 3. Yeah, if I do the math real quick, 1-1, 1-4, 3-4. Now this is where it gets bad. 3-4 is now 3-9, 4-9, 4-12, 5. I mean, they've 5. They've lost 13 in the last 18 games. Come on. Now, tank may be strong. I'll admit that. Because tanking means that you're purposely losing games, and I'm not saying that these teams are. And, of course, it's not as if I'm watching the Vancouver Canucks on a nightly basis to see who's out of lineup, who's a healthy scratch, etc. But knowing that there's a guy out there that they could draft that could change the fortunes of their franchise, I mean, think about the Canucks. I mean, please. And I understand a couple of years ago, they were that close to beating Edmonton in a conference semifinal, and I believe they had 100 and some odd points. So it's not as if they've been the dregs of the league for the last decade and a half like the Sabres. But come on. I mean, there's a little sus going on here when it comes to that. And the Blackhawks, I get it. They just drafted Connor Bedard 3 years ago. But maybe they're looking at it here too, like, hey, we'll start trading off pieces. We got our core guys. If we get lucky with the ping pong balls, with the lottery, we get the number one pick. And the Rangers got the number one pick in 2020 when they got Alexis Lafreniere, who, let's face it, has not been the hype that he was coming out of junior. I believe he came out, Quebec Junior Hockey League. He has not. So maybe they're looking to say, all right, let's trade some guys, improve our lottery chances, and if we're lucky to get Gavin McKenna, then away we go. So just a thought, people. I mean, the NHL, they don't follow suit like the NBA. You can't say the NFL, maybe to a certain extent. Teams tanking. I mean, look at the Jets. Jets in those last 6 games, they were embarrassing. But football is that much more egregious when you don't see a guy go out to tackle or is dropping a pass or is not going all out on a route or anything like that. But, yeah, the NHL, I mean, besides that, unfortunately, is there a lot to really chew on besides some of these minor deals that have taken place? You know, I know Utah. Calgary's another team you could throw in there as well. Utah's made a trade for Mackenzie Weegar. And I don't know what kind of trade you're going to get here between now and 3 p.m. tomorrow. Now, I don't think you're going to get any of the blockbuster variety that you've seen with the NBA here, where we saw Porzingis get traded. We saw, it was another big deal that kind of surprised us. If I pull up the teams, let me see NBA. What was the other trade that we were kind of like, oh, wait, we weren't expecting that to happen? Oh, Jaren Jackson going from Memphis to Utah. Obviously, the James Harden deal. So I don't think we're going to see that with the NHL. The star player, or unless you're going to get a player that's on the last deal of his contract, where it's pretty much a salary dump. Well, that's not a salary dump. I take that back. But they know it's an expiring contract that, hey, we're not going to lose out here considering that the team's going nowhere. So I'll be on top of it. Stay tuned to the channel for any blockbuster trades or any big trades that are going to happen with the NHL because, again, the deadline is tomorrow. And as far as, yeah, I know, then they're having this, the Capitals and Rangers are having this Inside Out game, which I know it's that Pixar movie that's coming out. I guess they're doing similar to what the NFL and Nickelodeon has when the Nickelodeon does their own broadcast and they make it playful for the kids and really G-rated. I guess the NHL and Disney, ESPN, they've now had this collaborative effort where they're going to have a broadcast April 5th, 7 o'clock with the Inside Out characters for this Disney Pixar film. Again, it's content, anything to bring eyeballs to the sets, even the young kids, and that's all that is. I mean, it's all about content in this day and age. So now let me see what we got as far as as I'm looking at this here. Okay, let me see what we got as far as the schedule here for the NHL over the next few days. Leafs and Rangers tonight. I bring that up. The Leafs are in trouble. As we know, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. And their head coach is in trouble, which I love, Craig Berube. So Toronto, just keep them in mind as we move down the stretch of the season. And I don't think they're going to click. Utah at Philly, Buffalo at Pittsburgh, Florida, Columbus, Boston, Nashville. Not a lot of good games tonight. Islanders are in LA to play the Kings after that loss last night in Anaheim. And then they'll go up to San Jose. I believe that game is Saturday. Tomorrow, Florida, Detroit. And by the way, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Islanders, Kings are ESPN games. Colorado at Dallas tomorrow. That is a big game. And I'll go through the standings in a moment. That's an enormous game. Dallas, last I checked, I think it was 6 points back. But we'll get to that in a moment. Whoa. Here goes your game that is, I don't want to call it the Tank Bowl. Vancouver and Chicago. Carolina, Edmonton, good game there. Montreal, Anaheim, Minnesota, Vegas, St. Louis, San Jose. Saturday, your ABC double dip. Washington at Boston, 12:30. followed by New York at New Jersey, Rangers, that is. Then Philly at Pittsburgh, Tampa, Toronto, Utah, Columbus, Montreal, LA, New York, San Jose, Islanders, that is. And then Sunday, TNT doubleheader, Minnesota, Colorado, very good game. That's at 2. 4:30, Boston at Pittsburgh. Then you have Tampa at Buffalo, very good. Chicago, Dallas, Detroit at New Jersey. Edmonton at Vegas. That's also a good game, too. A lot of good games in the NHL this weekend. I know not a lot of people are up on the NHL, but a lot better than the NBA. And the NBA has a couple good games. Knicks, Lakers, Sunday. Yeah, Golden State, Oklahoma City. Not so much. But here are your standings. Sabres 2 points behind the Lightning, but the Lightning have 2 games in hand. Keep that in mind. And the Red Wings are 3 points behind them, but the Lightning have 3 games in hand on the Red Wings. And then you have Montreal 75, Boston 73. Metropolitan, Carolina is going to coast. Then you have Pittsburgh and the Islanders at 75, followed by Columbus at 70. And I'll get to the wild cards. Hold on. I should have done that from the start. Montreal and Boston are your wild card teams. And then you have Columbus 3 points behind Boston, followed by the Caps 4 points behind. And then you have the Senators and Flyers 6 points behind. And forget it, Toronto's 8 points. I won't even include Toronto at this point. And Toronto's actually lost 5 in a row. Ugh. Not good for the Maple Leafs. Now you have Colorado 6 points ahead of Dallas. 9 points ahead of Minnesota, who they'll face over the weekend. But the Stars have won 10 in a row. So keep that in mind. Then you have Vegas, 72, Anaheim, 71, Edmonton, 68. And then you have Utah and the Kraken, 68, 67. Followed by San Jose, 64, the Kings and Predators, 62. Forget about Winnipeg on down. So, yeah, unlike the NBA with the playing scenario where teams, let's say they're that close, NHL, you have teams that are trying to not only knock on the door, but barge through it if you're San Jose, LA, Nashville in the West, and Columbus, Washington, Ottawa, Philadelphia in the East. So we will certainly be on top of that as we move it along here with the National Hockey League. All right, now let me switch it up here. I'm going to go baseball because today, and I understand this isn't on anybody's radar either, but I got to bring it up only because for 2 reasons. So the World Baseball Classic starts. And I know people are saying, JAYREELZ, seriously, we're going to talk World Baseball Classic. I talked about it a little bit yesterday on the live stream, but the one thing that I want to put out there, that if people are thinking that the USA baseball team is going to have similar traction to what we saw with the USA hockey team on the Olympics, not going to happen. Twofold. One is USA is actually the favorite to win the Baseball Classic, where I understand USA and Canada are pretty much were neck and neck, and it's not a situation where the USA baseball team is an underdog. So that's why I think, number one, that doesn't fly here. And number two, not many people are interested. See, the Olympic hockey team, for those who were alive at that time, that Miracle on Ice in 1980, that is not only, forget about hockey, that's one of the biggest upsets in sports history. And I understand it's the Olympics. It's not a Stanley Cup final. It's not a pro scenario. And then you have to think about the magnitude of that game at that time. You had the Soviets, who were by far, I mean, they were a machine at that time. And you had the U.S. players, they were all amateurs. There were no pro U.S. hockey players on that team. Far from it. And as it was, you didn't get the pro players playing the Olympics until, I believe, was it 92 was the first year? I don't think it was 88. Maybe 92. Because remember, you had the Dream Team in 92 for college, for basketball. You had the pros play in 92, and therefore that's when I believe they got the traction to where the NHL players were now on that stage. So, yeah, you don't have that. You don't have that feel with the baseball because it's a winter classic. It's a baseball classic that's been around. Funny enough, it's been around 20 years. So as much as people may think it's a novelty, it isn't because it is from the standpoint of it's been around, but people probably think, oh, it's been around for like, what, 10 years? Well, it's been longer. And it isn't because not that many people hang their hats on it. And if you ask even the good sports fan, if I were to ask them how many World Baseball Classics that the USA baseball team have won, they'd probably say, I don't know, 2 or 3. They've only won 1. And there have been 5 of these where Japan has won 3 of them, including the last one 3 years ago. Dominican Republic has won 1, and the U.S. won 1, and that was in 2017. So, and listen, people, I'm not going to break down rosters and things of that nature. I know yesterday I talked about U.S. being a favorite, a big favorite. They're actually minus 110, where you have Japan. I believe they were at plus 350. I think Dominican Republic was plus 400. Then you had the U.S. I think they were at, no, that's not U.S. You had Puerto Rico at plus 2,000. I think Mexico was plus 2,200. So for Cuba, for the Netherlands, forget about Italy, Israel, those teams, Australia. I mean, forget about those. Even Venezuela. And Venezuela, obviously, that's a hotbed for baseball, but they aren't anywhere near the favorites, or at least in the odds. So that's why the U.S., I don't know if it's going to gain any traction. So pretty much that's what you have with the baseball, because other than that, we know exhibition season's in full swing. We know that Jurickson Profar banned again, full season, 162 games. Remember, he got caught last year where he had to sit out 80 games. One more, dunzo. His career is over. So, and that's the Brave outfielder, which I'm sure the Braves will make a shrewd move at some point here to kind of bolster, because he's a left fielder and DH for the most part, but he also plays outfield. So that we'll have to wait and see. Now, let me see what else with baseball. I just want to, before I move on, I don't want to miss out on anything here. And I'll move on to one last thing, and then I'll check out all the comments, questions. We'll go through those. Yeah, that's one thing. If you're the Cincinnati Reds, Hunter Green is going to have an MRI on his right elbow. I'm sure everybody in the southwest region of Ohio, they are holding their collective breaths. And listen, I hope the kid is all right. I hope there's nothing structural as far as damage goes. I hope he's fine. And I'll just leave it like that. Oh, look at that. Oh, so Andrew McCutchen joins the Rangers on a minor league deal. Okay. 39 years old, former MVP, as we all know. Rangers. Yeah, good for him. Yeah, but that's what we have out there with the baseball. Other than that, yeah, there isn't anything to really discuss. Yeah, I know yesterday we talked about the top 100 players. I didn't go through the whole list, but we went through the top 10, and we talked about that. All right, now let me turn my attention to wrap up with the helmet and shoulder pads as I get out of the batter's box. We have seen a lot of people get released or cut here over the last several days. And am I going to break down every single cut? No. We understand there's also been a big trade where the Rams acquired Trent McDuffie, the former defensive back of the Kansas City Chiefs. They gave up a pretty hefty price tag, a number 1 pick this year, which is their later pick, because they get let me think I got this right. Was that with the trade with the Bears? They do have 2 number 1s. I got to pull that up. They do have 2 number 1s, but they're giving up the latter number 1 pick, the one that would have been for this year, because obviously they were top team, as we know. as I pull up the NFL draft list. The Rams, from the Falcons in that deal. What was that trade? Interesting. So they have the Falcons pick, which is number 13, but they gave up their number 1 pick, a 5th round, 6th round this year, and a 2nd round next year. And listen, we know McDuffie is a very good player, 2-time All-Pro. He's a first team and a second team back in 23-24. Last year did not get an All-Pro nod. But that certainly is going to bolster their defense and puts them in the running to obviously be a top favorite going into the season next year. And as we know, the Rams, they've done this before when they brought in Jalen Ramsey midseason and they sold out just to win a Super Bowl, and they did do that. Now, there were a couple of lean years, not too bad, but then they rebounded nicely to where they got a lot of those draft picks, the guys that they hit on, the Jared Youngs, Jared Verse, the Kobe Turners of the world, guys like that, to where they've restocked their defense post Aaron Donald. And now adding Trent McDuffie, it is go time. They're saying, we want to get back to the dance, win the thing, and hopefully, with the game being played in their building next year, have their quarterback go off into the sunset as he returned for one more year. Stated that in the NFL honors after capturing his MVP. So therefore, they have pushed all those chips to the middle of the table, and good for them. But as far as the cuts, whether it's Kyler Murray, no surprise there. And people have asked me, JAYREELZ, what do you think? Kyler Murray, you want him on the Steelers? I do not. Nothing against him, but we did that a couple of years ago, albeit much longer in the tooth. Not the scramble capability that he once had, and certainly not anywhere close to what Kyler Murray has now, despite all of his recent injuries. But Russell Wilson, that's what he is. Now, he's better now than Russell Wilson is now, but it's not saying a lot because Kyler Murray has ability, escapability, extending plays. He's very good, but he's small. A lot of balls batted down at the line of scrimmage. And, yeah, I'd go elsewhere. Now, we understand the quarterback position as far as free agency or trying to get one is slim pickings, but I still wouldn't want him on the team. That's just how I feel. And then you also have Kirk Cousins, who you know is going to be released next week. Who knows if the Steelers are going to dabble with that. Early in the week, you had David Montgomery getting traded. I think I talked about that on the podcast, though. And I thought that was a very good deal by the Texans to bring in Montgomery. Their running back situation is an atrocity, considering Joe Mixon was out all year with his, I believe he had, a foot injury. And then you had Woody Marks, who ran well against the Steelers in the playoffs, but is he a guy every down back? No. Now you got your guy, and Montgomery's going to fill those shoes nicely, you would think. We see that Stephon Diggs is going to get cut from the Patriots. I was asked that this morning on the live stream. Do not want him. He's going to cost you a lot, and I hate to say it, he is a headache. He's got this felony thing hanging over his head. And who knows what's going to happen with that. You got Mekhi Becton. You got Jonnu Smith. Mekhi Becton, formerly of the Chargers. Jonnu Smith, who they traded last offseason from Miami. He's released. And Aaron Rodgers, I can't go down that road with Aaron Rodgers right now. I know he was on with Pat McAfee, and he talked about what is the likelihood of him returning to Pittsburgh and Mike McCarthy. And he did say nice things about McCarthy, so there isn't a rift between the two. A lot of people thought that was the case before McCarthy got fired in Green Bay there a few years back. But I just can't get into it with Rodgers right now. And then you have Drew Dahlman, the Bear center, retiring at the age of 27. That's a pretty big loss, considering that's the guy that snaps the ball to their former number 1 overall pick and a one Caleb Williams. So I'm sure that's going to be a priority, whether in free agency or the draft for the Bears, to shore up that offensive line, to make sure that Caleb Williams is going to be upright. Indianapolis did something that you hadn't seen in a million years. They put a transition, not a franchise, tag on Daniel Jones, which means that they can match any offer. If a team wants to sign Daniel Jones, that they have the match to refuse whomever's going to try to sign him with their own offer. A little gutsy, because I'm sure there's one drunken GM or owner that says, hey, Daniel Jones, you played well. Let's sign him to a long-term deal. And it probably won't be long, 3 years tops? But let's see if Daniel Jones stays or if he goes. And then you have a lot of these teams that are pairing these players. And that's how it is, because Wednesday, which you're going to want to join the live stream next Wednesday or this coming Wednesday, obviously all that's going to happen with the free agency and who's going to sign where, heads are going to be spinning, especially with me trying to track down and figure out where these players are going. So you definitely want to tune in and join me for that one. But that's the NFL this time of year. And it's going to be, I don't want to say fascinating, because I looked at the free agent list yesterday. Not a lot to really, and generally it's interesting because you're not going to get the big time quarterback that's going to be out there. That person's going to get re-signed, or, there's going to be wide receivers. There's going to be running backs. There's going to be pass rushers. There's going to be offensive linemen. So you're not going to have that one guy that, oh, wow, such and such quarterbacks out there. Joe Burrow's not hitting the free agent market. Josh Allen isn't doing the same. Lamar Jackson, et cetera. Now they're going to have to pare back as far as restructuring salaries. They did that in Dallas with both Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. But as far as having an offseason where you got to get under that cap and try to bring players, listen, and I'm not a capologist, so I'm not going to sit here to say, oh, yeah, I know this, that, and the third. But it is tricky to pare down your roster to the point where you have enough flexibility to bring in these guys, because if you don't, you're going to be left in the dust with everybody else, and it's going to be almost Black Friday where people are going in the bins, throwing around to try to get that left tackle or that corner or maybe even special teams player, whatever it is. So stay tuned here on the channel for more, especially as we get closer to the start of the new season next week. And a couple other quickies. Falcons are going to play Madrid next year. I tell you, if the NFL could go to the moon, they would. They're trying to expand their global reach, the brand. I get it. Doesn't mean you have to like it. So that's all I say. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, I don't love the international games because as it is, you're watching football from 1 to about 11:30. And think about this, people. I hate to even say chew on this because this is going to be a reality at some point. The NFL, they're going to do their best to have a slate of games from almost start to finish in the NFL season. They're going to want to go 16 weeks. I mean, think about it. They've gone to London, as we all know, Munich, Dublin. They're going now, Sao Paulo, as we've seen, Rio. Those are two other places. They're going to Australia. I said Munich, Germany. Now Spain. What's next? The Far East? Or they're going to play in Tokyo at some point? They're going to go down under. And they're going to try to expand that schedule, especially once it gets to 18, because then what they could do is they could take those, I would say, first 16 weeks and have the schedule dispersed out to all these locations. And there's several right now. It's not like they're going to 2 countries. They're going a ton, and a ton of cities in one country. Munich, Dublin, and London. They go to 2 different stadiums as it is, Wembley and Tottenham Hotspur. Listen, the NFL, as I like to say, if you're watching on YouTube, that impenetrable shield. They could have dings on it. There could be a little bit of a crack or bend or whatever, but it doesn't matter. The people cannot get enough of these games. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox or get on my high horse to get into that. No, I won't. But I will say the people are going to watch because they have fantasy football. They have in-game props. They have everything that's tied into it. And that's where the NFL, not to say they get away with it, but that's why they could do it. Nothing more else needs to be said about that. And then lastly, some sad news. This is more from a college football ranks. Although he did, a lot of people forget, he was the head coach of the Jets back in 1976. He was 3-10, very unsuccessful. But Lou Holtz, the former Notre Dame coach, big time success when he succeeded Jerry Faust. And if you recall, Jerry Faust, wasn't he had that last game? Or maybe that was a Lou Holtz game later on. Yeah, I think it was later on. That 59-0 game, whatever it was. But anyway, Lou Holtz, 89 years old. They have not put out the details of his death, but he died surrounded by family. And listen, we know Lou Holtz's career, especially at Notre Dame, national champion in 88, one of the great, and you could argue whether or not, because college football regular season, you don't have a ton of those. But that, for that time, and I remember it well, 1988, it was what? I believe that game was in September. Was it late September? Number 1 versus number 4, Miami versus Notre Dame in South Bend. The Cleveland Gary game, the fumble there at the goal line, the Catholics versus Convicts game, the controversial title of that game. And that's when Miami, they were the bad boys of the sport. I mean, listen, they invented swag. Let's face it. When you think back in sports history, as a team, I understand you could talk about Joe Willie, his swag as the playboy that he was for the New York Jets, winning that Super Bowl. Muhammad Ali, his swag, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. But again, he's a boxer. He's a showman. He was a walking billboard, not necessarily with the companies or anything on his chest, but I mean, the guy had flares that nobody ever has walked the earth the way he has. But then you have teams that before UNLV, the Running Rebels, or even the Fab Five in Michigan in the early 90s, you had the Hurricanes. You had that swag. And that was a crazy game. The brawl in the tunnel, or the almost brawl in the tunnel. Cleveland Gary looked like it was a touchdown right there on the goal line. It was a fumble recovered by Notre Dame. That touchdown would have sealed the game for the Hurricanes. Did not. They lost 31-30 in the game. But Lou Holtz passing away. Thoughts, prayers, condolences go out to his family, the Notre Dame family, etc. 89 years of age. And like my guy, Fuqua, from the community that I have, and growing, I might add, said it best. I'd sign up for 89. You know what? I definitely will too. Where's the paperwork? Because I'm ready to sign right now. All right, people, let's get to the comments. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you waiting. Scroll up to the top. J-Rod, Michigan, Iowa. Yeah, Michigan, that should be a dub. They did. That game. And the thing is, I didn't watch that game. I was in the middle of cooking, and then I looked at the score, and I said, and this was early, and Charlotte had a healthy lead, but they had a good lead. I'm like, all right, still early, whatever. And then I was going to turn it on, but then I realized, I said, you know what? Let me see what the score is. And I saw that the Hornets were kicking their ass. And I said to myself, I said, oh, I don't think it's time for me to watch. I think the score at the time, I know I said earlier, was it 109-81, but I saw a score before that. What was it? Yeah, it was like 90-70 something, and I was just, I said, geez. The Hornets are putting it on the Celtics tonight? Yeah, that was, if that wasn't a statement win, that was, especially this late in the year. And Charlotte has beaten good teams. Charlotte won in Oklahoma City this year. Hey, think about that. So I don't think they're afraid of anybody, and that's a dangerous team. But when you get to the postseason, it's a whole different beast, as you know. Let me see. Charlotte, did they beat San Antonio too? I want to say they also beat the Spurs. I'm going to pull that up. I got to make sure that I'm right. I know they beat OKC. Hornets. Wait, hold on a second. All right. Hornets have beaten. Yeah, they beat the Rockets in Houston. Now, they lost to them just recently, I think, right? Didn't they lose to them the other day? And they beat the Spurs. Yep. Yeah, because I remember when I saw that they were actually in the play-in scenario, I said to myself, I said, wait a second. Let me see who they beat here. Did they beat the Dregs? As I know, they've actually beaten pretty good teams. Beat the Nuggets in Denver. And they beat a 110-87. Yeah, I mean, listen. Won in LA against the Lakers. That is going to be a hey, listen, I hope they're building something there. I'd like to see it. Bills trading for Is that right? Bills trading for DJ Moore? Bears have agreed to a trade to send DJ Moore to the Buffalo Bills. Why would the Bears do that? Listen, I'm not making DJ Moore out to be Jerry Rice, but you're actually taking a weapon away from Caleb Williams. Listen, from the surface, now they haven't said what's involved. Well, I'd probably say if DJ Moore, third round pick at the most. Yeah, but I don't know if let me tell you something. That's a good move by the Bills, but that's not come on. If I'm the Bills, I gotta do better than. Listen, if you're gonna put him on the team and you're gonna bring somebody that's better than him, then fine. But that can't be it. I mean, if they got, and not that this would happen, if the Bills got Justin Jefferson, now you're talking. DJ Moore, he's good. In fact, he's very good. But, hey, come on. You're not going to be shaking in your boots if your defensive coordinator thinking like, oh, geez, I got to stop DJ Moore today. Let me see. Who would be the right fit for Josh Allen as a receiver? If there's one guy. Yeah, I'm thinking in division, but they're not going to do that. He's on Jacksonville now. Is what's called? He's on the Jaguars, isn't he? Calvin Ridley. What about Calvin Ridley? Let me type him up here. I know he's got his issues and gambling and all that and whatever. Oh, he's on Tennessee. That's right, because he left. I was thinking that for a second because I know it by way of Atlanta. No, but they want to keep him there for Cam Ward. Yeah, I don't know. To me, that's a good move, but that's not. If I'm a Bills fan, I'd be like, okay, what's next? You got to give me more than that. The novice, hottest team in the NBA. Yeah, I agree with you, man. They're going to be tough. Pistons have to start making 10 points. Wow. See, the thing about the Pistons, Jay, is that who is your second guy on that team to go to in crunch time? That, to me, is the big question. Oh, Fishing Angel. I appreciate you. I thank you. That's the thing with the Pistons that would worry me. Now, they're going to defend. They're going to play physical. They're going to manhandle a lot of teams. But in a 7-game series, if they're going to lock in on Cade, who's that second guy? Who is that guy that's going to deliver in a big spot? Jordan saw the majority of his team. No, and you're right about that, J-Rod. They did. And look, you're right, Bio. Exactly. Maybe that 93 playoff series, rest in peace, Reggie Lewis. 81-23. Yeah, I can see a blowout. Imagine that, 23 points. Oof. You know the Michigan defense showed up. If that's the case, either that or Iowa shot like the way St. John's did in that game against UConn. He still owns some of the team, but I think it's 25. Yeah, I think you're right about that, J-Rod. Don't care about basketball. Yeah, I know. With, what's his name? Tyler Reddick. Fuqua. Nothing going to change. That's a good one. Gary Bettman, he's now 31 years. So he's the longest active commish in the 4 major sports. Yeah, because Goodell was what, like 2011-ish? No, Tagliabue may have stepped down and owned. I don't know. Well, right. Obviously, Goodell's not 31 years. Rob Manfred, not that. And who am I missing? Well, Adam Silver, yeah, 2014. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of Bettman either, Fuqua. So, yeah, I'm with you. Yes, Jordan does still belong part of the team. You got that. Mark Simmons. Yeah, you were reading my mind about that. Because I think you asked me who's my favorite baseball player, and I said Strawberry. What's my top five? My personal top five baseball players of all time that I love? Wow. Yeah, I'm not talking about like top five, because obviously Strawberry's not a top five player all time. My top five. It's a good question. I will say this, and I'm not ranking them in any order. The one player is really a pitcher that I loved watching was Pedro Martinez. So he'd be up there. Tony Gwynn, I loved. He's in my top five. You see, Strawberry I love, but he's not. Strawberry's not in that class though. Hall of Fame talent, but who else I love? I love Keith Hernandez. He's a Met, but he was great. First base. I know my top five's all over the place. Yeah, I know how much I've talked about Griffey. But no, somebody I love that, like, just when I watched, like, you just had to watch. You know who's in my top five too? And again, he doesn't get a lot of fanfare, and I talk about him when we talk Hall of Fame. I loved Albert Bell. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's my top. I loved Albert Bell. And he was a DH, when you think about it. He was a butcher of an outfielder. But yeah. Yeah, I guess that's my top five. Now, if you're going to ask me, like, who I think are like the top five players that I've seen in my lifetime, I mean, Bonds, I'd have to say. Bonds, A-Rod, no order. Bonds, A-Rod, Griffey. Now, I understand I didn't see the bulk of his career, but Johnny Bench. Who would be number five? Michael Jack Schmidt. I mean, come on. That guy was 548 home runs. How many Gold Gloves, MVPs? That guy was great. Jordan wasn't a good. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're not built like that. Yeah, definitely not built like that. You're right about that, Donavis. I agree. Oh, is that right? Fishing Angel hockey. Okay. No, in the 80s, I used to love. Oh, I couldn't get enough hockey in the 80s. Yes, he saw us taking the team early 20th majority. Right. Yeah, I forgot who the majority owner is. Oh, that's a good one, Mark. Ricky Henderson. Yeah, he should be on that list. Yeah, if I take out Pedro because he's a pitcher, if I did pitchers separate, yeah, I'd have to put Henderson there. Played on a million teams, though, but yeah. Isaiah Stewart played last night. All that time, so pretty rusty. Oh, did he really? No. Yeah, I didn't see the game last night. They need a kind of owner because playing for Jordan is hard. Yes, racing Jordan. Yeah, no, Jordan is Jordan. I mean, he sent an interview out NASCAR Sunday. He just brings money to the table. Oh, okay. So he pretty much has his feet up. First time ever. Yep. That was his three-peat. I know a lot of people saying that. Does NBA have game flexing? I don't think they do because just like I said earlier, and you were on that, the novice, they should be showing Detroit, San Antonio tonight. Golden State, Houston? Listen, I understand you're talking about pedigree with Golden State and in Houston, obviously, with Kevin Durant. Yeah, Detroit San Antonio needs to be on. I wish they would flex, and they should. Why not? It's like the NFL. Oh, we got to tell you a week ahead where you're not going to play at 8:15. You're going to play at 1 o'clock or whatever. They should flex out of that. Why not? Oh, lost my comment there. If you had to call a team generation of miracles, what's up, Automation? Shout out. Wait, let me see if I read this properly. If you had, I don't know if you're still on with us, Automation. I know you wrote that almost an hour ago. If I had to call a team generation of miracles, I mean, listen, I was referring to the 80 hockey team. Team generation of miracles. Yeah, I don't know if I were to. Yeah, I don't know if I could answer that. A team generation of miracles. Like, who got lucky in one? Listen, if you come back, Mark, let me see. You know what? I'm going to scroll down, see if you've written anything. No, I don't see anything. All right. Oh, so you're talking Mets then, Mark, right? Top 5 Mets of all time? Now, if you ask me my top 5 or what I would think, I mean, listen, first and foremost, number 1 is Tom Seaver. I mean, that goes without saying. Yeah, I'd have to say it'd be Seaver, Strawberry. I mean, Carter was that missing piece, but he was just there for 5 years. I know you said Dwight Gooden. Yeah, Gooden's up there for me, but yeah, that's not tough. But I would have to say Seaver, Strawberry, Hernandez. I'd throw Gooden in there, and you'd probably have to say Piazza too. Yeah, John Franco, I wouldn't say, and Piazza belongs in there, I think. Yeah, because Jordan's only the best for his team and his fighting. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's definitely a competitor. Low sports fans, people love drama. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm sure they are attracted to that. Shaz Agdal. Yes. Thank you, Novice. Of course, my guy, Val B. No worries. All the hellos. Macklin Will. Mike Brown. Look at that. Val, Trent Brown. Yes, I saw that too. 1-year extension. All right, let me just scrolling down after all the hellos and the thank yous. And all right, I personally feel that the NHL needs to get new people in the stands because if you see, yeah, NHL is better in person without question. Yeah, and I know they say, oh, our digital platforms are doing well and the ratings are great and so on and so forth. Yeah, regular season, I hate to say it, not that many people care about. And although you have good games this weekend, but it just doesn't resonate with the casual fan or even the average fan, the NHL. You got to be into it in order to really follow it. Has the worst PR team in all the majors. Yeah, I wouldn't know that. I could argue the NFL has the worst because when it comes to the off the field stuff, whether it's the domestic violence / PED user, I mean, you could go through, let me see. Well, the thing is that you could have, and they've had murderers, and it's like they just dust dirt off the shoulder, which is nuts. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one to answer. Major League Baseball is the worst PR. I don't know. I have to give that some more thought. Yes, we saw about DJ Moore. Surprise question and comment saying is coming up. Don't forget to speak your mind, and Jay will get to you. Yes. Oh, I appreciate that, the novice. Thank you. Yeah, DJ Moore. Yes. I like that, but again, I'd have to see more. Val, Rangers, Andrew McCutcheon. Yes. Minor league deal. Bio. Really? What do you think? Now, it's probably going to have to be what? 1 year, $15 million? I don't know what their cap situation is, but considering they're going to sign McDuffie to this money, and yeah, Devontae Adams isn't costing a lot, and Puka's still on his rookie deal. Could it happen? I can see that happening, especially if Stafford called, and I'm sure he's talking to Les Snead, the GM, to be like, hey, how can we get him on here? Now, who knows? What does Murray want? Is Murray going to say, well, hey, if Stafford retires after next year, can I get a multi-year deal? And I don't know if you want to have him on your team after next year if Stafford decides to retire. Let's see. The Rams weren't getting a corner at 29. Yep. Yeah, excellent point. Without question. Oh, RH. He still wants to talk about the Super Bowl halftime guy. Yeah, best trade DJ. That is breaking. I'd love to get it while it's happening. The news, that is. Oh, you do? Well, that's good to know because I don't listen. Not that I'm polling people. Oh, what do you think about the international games? Do you like them? Do you this? Do you that? No, I get it. But yeah, in my household, forget it. I understand, watching sports is what I do, but could you imagine and there's usually that stretch from like late September to early November where there's like 5 or 6 international games. Last year, the Steelers were in Dublin where they played the Vikings. Yeah, I was up early to watch that. I mean, I got to watch that. But yeah, if it's Houston, Jacksonville, oh, God, jeez. I'm sorry, I can't. I know international game, good time. Yeah, it is. Oxymoron for sure. Yeah, there has to be more to the story. I don't know. Yeah, it's probably not. Unless they get the Godfather offer, can't refuse. If they could hide all those, you're doing great. Yeah, I'm sure if they could, they would. Val with the wave and a good show. Thank you. Murray's cheap because the cards are paying him. Yes, exactly. So what's that? The veteran minimum, I would think. Oh, hold on. I feel like I skipped over a bunch of. No. No, I think we're good. All right. Hold on. Show. Yeah, help develop Baker Mayfield. I know Mayfield. The one thing about Mayfield, I give him credit. He has a chip on his shoulder. Former number 1 overall pick. Bounced around a million teams. Panthers, Rams. Now Bucks. Yeah, the one thing I don't like about Mayfield, I think he's good, but he needs to be great to win. Because the great ones usually win. So, yeah. But listen, he turned his career around. Obviously, he's making money down in Tampa. So, let me see. All right, then obviously again, Murray's cheap. Oh, yeah, that's not the comment I wanted. Question is who the Rams pick at 13. I would think, would they go O-line? I saw that mock draft yesterday. I would go O-line. Defense, you're set. Your skill positions on offense are set. I mean, think about it. You have receivers, you have tight ends, you have running backs. I would say O-line. 2026. I'm going to go through a couple of these. Not that these mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but, at least you could base it on something. All right. Whoop. They have the. Oh, that's right. Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end. That's one mock draft. That's on ESPN. Charles Davis mock draft. Let's see. $13. Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver at USC. All right, I can see that. I'm looking for one more. Hold on. Oh, no, CBS. Why not? Yeah, if they say a wide receiver again. No, they got him picking Ken. No. Yeah, see, 13. Monroe Freeling from Georgia. It's funny because they're saying here, whoever wrote this, it may not be the most pressing need for the Rams, but with 2 first rounders to take a swing, this is prior to the trade. They may take a swing on Monroe Freeling's potential and grab somebody who could be a franchise left tackle for the next decade. I mean, come on, you lost Rob Havenstein. I would think they would go O-line. Because again, can you go defensive lineman? I guess you could. Could you go linebackers? The linebackers are good. Can you go? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Who knows? All right. A lot of people talk about Mekhi Lemon. Wide receiver. All right. And the Rams are horrible in special teams. Yeah, exactly. What you call it? The novice hits it right on the head. I mean, that's my thinking. And even though that writer said, oh, no pressing need, you do not have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. You got a guy that is literally a statue. So I would think, am I wrong? But injury. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah. I can see that too, Bio. Oh, yeah. Alec Jackson. All right. Well, yeah, if you think that he's going to be the guy that's going to fill in and do a good job, then, Reed, greetings. Have I watched the NHL draft? I can't say I have recently. That's for damn sure. And you thought I would? No, you know what? That's a lie. I did watch. I watched just and the Islanders had 3 picks in the first round this year. I did watch when Matthew Schaefer got selected and when the Islanders had the back-to-back, 15 and 16. But that was it. I never heard anyone say I'm watching it. Yeah, I never heard either. Hold on. Yeah, I never heard it either. 1,000%. Or even the Major League Baseball draft. Who watches that? And I'm a baseball guy, but yeah, I haven't turned that on. Maybe if the Mets were drafting number 1 overall, I'd be like, all right. But I have not watched that. Let's see what else we got here real quick. Yeah, Texans reached deal to sign Trent Brown. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I'm just scrolling down. All right. Oh, is that this weekend? The Arnold Palmer Invitational? All right, my good people. I don't know. Anything else you want to add in, chime in. I've watched WNBA draft before, JAYREELZ. I have no shame. Hey, listen, nothing wrong with that. I certainly wouldn't knock you if you watched the WNBA draft. Without question, yes. People watch the NFL. If you had to do it in order, it's NFL, NBA. I mean, take your pick if it's MLB or NHL, but they're both on the bottom rung. I've never heard that either. Oh, WNBA, yes. But if you did, listen, I ain't mad at you. I wouldn't judge you. I watch NFL. Yeah, look at that. When you had those players get drafted. Kyler to the Vikings. I know you mentioned that too, to Novice. Kevin O'Connell's your coach. Listen, I wouldn't touch him. Yeah, I would. I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, Viking. Let me think. Yeah, Vikings. Yeah, JJ McCarthy. I don't know if he's. I don't know if he's the guy. Still early. I know he was hurt all the first year and last year. It was hurt in between. You know what, the novice? Maybe that would be a good spot for him. ESPN broadcast everything. Oh yeah, who does the draft now on ESPN? Stephen A. on that? No, I don't even know if he is anymore. Was that like Reese Davis and Jay Williams? I don't even know. And I've watched it. Oh, is that right? So then you're if that's the case, as I'm reading Reed's comment, if that's the case, Val, you watched the NHL draft 2024 because that was Celebrini. I'm sure that was a good one. Let's see. DJ Moore will help Buffalo in a trade. Yeah, I think he will, but they need a star stud pass catcher. Is DJ Moore that? Not my eyes. I mean, he's a little. Yeah, like to bring in like the Brandon Cooks of the world, and to me, he's a guy like that. I mean, he's better than Brandon Cooks, but and I understand number one wide receivers don't grow on trees. But if I had my druthers, I'd have to sit and think about that though. If I had to, you know what? Let me pick a team. This is what I love. I get intrigued by this. Come on, NFL. I got one for you. Now I don't know how they feel about it, but what if the Bills went to the Saints and said, "What can we get for Chris Olave?" Oh, Mike Evans is a free agent. Why not go after him? I understand he's 32, 33 years of age, but to me, that is a perfect guy. And last year was the first year he was hurt because remember, he had 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Mike Evans, I think, would be, and again, you got to worry about injuries, and that's the guy I'd be calling. And I understand they may call him. They can't do it until the 11th, till next week. Yeah, I'm going through all the teams here, people. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going through all these teams, people, and it's just like, because forget about the teams. Jalen Waddle in the division, no. Garrett Wilson in the division, no. Cowboys, nobody there. Giants, no Malik Neighbors or Wan'Dale Robinson. Eagles, AJ Brown, that's not going to happen. Commanders, yeah, I know my silence is deafening, but yeah, I'm going through all these teams, and there isn't. Now, one guy who's a free agent, but they got 100 tight ends is Isaiah Likely. Yeah, Mike Evans, there's your guy. That's the only one I can really see right now. And I hope they pursue him. No, he's still a free agent, Reed. Wait, let me scroll up here. I missed some of these comments. Hold on. All right, A.J. Brown and Buffalo reunion with Stephon Diggs. If I'm the Bills, I wouldn't go near Stephon Diggs. I'd go after A.J. Brown first. Yeah, Diggs, he's a good receiver. Yeah, but to me, he's not elite. And they need an elite receiver. They need a guy that's going to be reliable because these Keon Colemans, Traded for Amari Cooper, and that ain't cutting it. Daniel Jones being transitional franchise tag. It does. Coach is about to be cut. Roger not signing anywhere. I know. And look, you're talking about three guys. I understand Jones is a lot younger than Cousins and Rodgers, of course, but Cousins is that guy that when you think, oh no, let's see what happens, and then he gets off to a hot start, you're like, oh, hey, great. And then he just unravels. No, he's still a free agent. Let me double check that. Because I looked at the list yesterday. Yeah, all the stuff that I'm reading here, although, yeah, he's still, it says Tampa, but yeah. Rumors, Mike Evans on New York's radar. Ooh, Jets or Giants? Giants? Ugh. Yeah, Jackson Dart, maybe. NFL analyst says Buccaneer star Mike Evans no longer. Yeah, that's different. Nah, based on what I see here, he's a free agent. And by the way, his career numbers, I think, yeah, Mike Evans, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer. Wait, how many touchdowns? Oh, yeah, Mike Evans, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. 10 straight 1,000-yard years. 866 catches. He has to get to 1,000, I think. Yeah, no, look at those numbers, man. 13,052 yards. He had 1,000 and up till last year. 10 straight, 11, I think. Wait, hold on. 1, 2. 11 years. Yeah, some of those were like hovering. Yeah, 1,001 one year, 1,006, 1,004, 1,051. Yeah, 1,206, 1,321, 1,524, 1,157, 1,124, 1,255. Yeah, it's like a running back. Put it this way. Let me ask you guys this, because I think he's going to be eligible next year. And this is a good one. Is Frank Gore a Hall of Famer? And if you know me, I'm sure you know the answer to that. And I can pull up his numbers. Now, let me see Mike Evans. Hold on a second. Mike Evans he was never, here's the thing that may hurt him. He was never first or second team All-Pro. I understand there's a million receivers out there, but I think he's a Hall of Famer. He has over 100 touchdowns. Yeah. Is Frank Gore a Hall of Famer? Well, let me catch up on the comments here. My bad. The novice. Evans to the Pats? Spoiler, huh? Ooh, would he go there? Oh. Heard a rumor Mike Evans 49ers trade talks, but I don't think it's talked about anymore. Well, no, now he's a free agent there, Val. Max Crosby. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors around him. No, that's all right, Val. All right, Reed on top of that. That's good. I like that. I like it. I'm not too sure if I watched Macklin get drafted. Maybe I kind of forgot. Yeah, he got drafted in that first pick overall, 2024. Jahan Dotson. Yeah, and you would know. Sleeper wide receiver. Oh, so he's a free agent too, Jahan Dotson? Gore has to be. His numbers. Well, here's the thing. His numbers, but he's a compiler though, man. And that's the thing that may hurt Evans, because Evans was not a first or second NFL All-Pro. All right, here we go. Seeing a lot of these years, just like Evans too. Yeah, his second year in the league, monster year. 312 attempts, 1,695 yards, 8 touchdowns. Was he second team All-Pro? I need to know that. He was. At least he has that on his ledger. But after that, look at these numbers. 1102, 1036, 1120. In 2010, he was hurt, 853. Then 1211, 1214, 1128, 1106, 967, 1025. And then those last few years were just, and I understand he rushed for 1,000, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. He's a compiler. He's going to get in, though. 16,000 yards, 81 touchdowns. If he had 100 touchdowns, I understand he was an All-Pro once. In my eyes, he's not a Hall of Famer. I wouldn't put him in. Let me see. Who is comparable to him, though? Curtis Martin? Let's look him up real quick. Curtis Martin, look at that. In his next to last year in the NFL, led in attempts and rushing yards. And Curtis Martin's in the Hall of Fame, is he? Yeah, he is. One-time All-Pro, just like, and it had to be that year, I guess. 2004. Curtis Martin went to Pittsburgh Panthers. Yeah, he was Rookie of the Year, All-Pro second team twice. Yeah, and he rushed 1487, 1152, 1160, 1280, 1464, 1204, 1513. How many touchdowns? 90. What do you average a carry? 4. And listen, that's not a knock on Gore. But yeah, that's he's a compiler. What's this? Texans are promoting Shaplinski. Charge of running Houston. Okay. Go on, Val. An all-decade player? Yeah, that he was. Oh, that's all right, Val. Please, mine isn't either. No, listen, if you think I won't vociferously debate against you on that, not like what we see with Andrew Jones and Scott Rowland in the Baseball Hall of Fame. But yeah, Gore, first of all, he shouldn't be on the first. He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, because I could give you numbers from guys that had shorter career. I look at Terrell Davis. Better yet, you know the guy that I loved, that I thought was a monster? Earl Campbell. And that guy, and unfortunately, he was a guy, he was so fast. He made people miss because he was fast. He didn't make people miss like Barry Sanders. I know. And he got his MVP. He got his Hall of Fame in those first 3 years. You see the black type by this guy's name in the first 3 years? First of all, did he do that in his rookie year? I mean, it was the second year. I think it was the second year. Earl Campbell was MVP 1 year. Rookie of the year. He had the famed Monday night game, as you know. Yeah, it was Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-Pro. In the first 3 years in the league, he was first team All-Pro, won an MVP in his second year. I mean, this is dominance. Remember, I'm talking about these running backs. 1,100, 1,000. Well, Mike Evans was 1,000. But 1,100, 1,000 this, 1,000. Earl Campbell in his first 3 years in the league, 1,450 rushing yards, 1,697, 1,934, 1,376. Led in rushing those 3 years, led in attempts in his third year, led in touchdowns 2 years, and then when he won the MVP, 19 touchdowns, averaged 96, 108, 106, and in his third year, he averaged 128 yards. I mean, the guy was just, come on. I hate to say this, those 3 years alone is better than Frank Gore's career. That, we could debate that. I mean, those aren't great years. Those are killer years. Black type in attempts, 3 times in yards, two in touchdowns, and 3 in yards per carry or yards per game, and 1 yards per carry. And I'm not trying to kill Frank Gore here. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not even going to put and I put Campbell. I'm not going to put Barry Sanders or Emmett. I mean, that's just unfair. I just bring up Campbell because when you look at his career overall, because after that, then he fell off because that's when the injuries caught up. And even in that 4th year, 361, 1376. And then, in Houston, that was a strike year, 157 for 538. Then he had 1301. Then after that, he fell apart. Then he went to New Orleans. And to me, Earl Campbell has like the greatest highlights. You know what? What time is it? Yeah, I got a few minutes. Yeah, I'm going to show you some highlights here. And this is thanks to you, Bio. I know I should have done this and I probably will do so at some point. If I show you Earl Campbell and his dominance for the young whippersnapper out there. All right, Earl Campbell. This is when he was in college, Texas. Earl Campbell. Earl Campbell had, to me, here it is. This is the first thing. Earl Campbell had the best stiff arm ever. Have you ever seen this, people? I'm going to show it to you right now. Earl Campbell, share. Yep. Watch this, my good people. I know it's a little bit blurry. Watch this. That's him, number 20. Watch the stiff arm. 5 yards he carries this guy. Once more. Yeah. Look at his stiff arm, people. I mean, do I need to say any more? Do I need to say any more? That's number 1. Here's another highlight of his. That is an all-timer against, I hate to bring this up, this is the Biles Rams. Yeah, Earl Campbell tearaway jersey. I got to type is Earl Campbell and all this stuff comes up. Oh, is this with the original commentary? Yo. Check this out, people. All right, let me put this on pause. This is one of the great runs of all time. And then, of course, there's the Jack Tatum at the goal line. I got to show you that. Jack Tatum, rest in peace. Where is it? Is this it? Yeah.
For the Oilers, recovering that block kick, they're down to the Ram 22.
Oh, that's Vin Scully on the call. Watch this run.
10-3 Los Angeles, and here goes Earl Campbell.
Head and chest, runs this guy over, and now watch this.
On his back. Beautiful. Five. Oh. They're going wild in Houston. Everybody's happy.
This guy was a beast. Oh, and then you're gonna see. I mean, look at it. This is head right in his chest. Watch this.
Tony Dorsett.
Oh.
Boy, did he hit Robertson.
Earl Campbell is strong.
You better put respect on that guy's name. I understand he didn't have the long career. I understand he doesn't have the gaudy, complete rushing yards, as far as like he's in the 15,000s and et cetera. But if somebody were to tell me, hey, if I'm starting a team tomorrow, and Earl Campbell's on my team, I'd be like, I got you. You got it. Yeah, let's get the Jack Tatum one. Yeah, don't get me started with it. I could just do a live stream, and maybe I will do that. You say, JAYREELZ, what about this? And I'll just put highlights up all day. And this is all on YouTube, so I can't get copyrighted. And I'm not putting up full games. And even if that was the case, Earl Campbell, Jack Tatum. And Jack Tatum, was a vicious hitter. Hold on. All right. Yeah, it has a short on it. Can I pause this? All right. Last one. And then I'll stop. All right. Oh, that's the other one. Here we go. Ready?
The hardest hit.
Oh, sorry. My mouse
But
is.
the hardest hit that Earl Campbell ever dished out.
We're playing the Raiders in the Dome.
1979.
It was 4th and 1. Earl Campbell had the football.
And Tatum, this he's long in the tooth here, by the way.
And
but still,
he
there he
and
is
Earl
right there.
collide on the
Right in
sweep
the
by
neck.
Earl around the right end, and it was a collision that was heard outside the Dome.
He hit him, and then Jack went down and felt really good because he hit Earl hard.
And the two guys hit and collided, and they just was like that, like two rams or bulls or something. And then they just fell into the end.
Hang on, guys. I got to get like a wider shot of this. I got to get it. Come on. They don't have this? Yeah, they have the assassin Jack Tatum career highlights. All right, yeah, I don't want to bore you with what you call it, so hold on a second. Yeah, you see, you get me down the rabbit hole. Forget about it. I'll be here all day. All right, let me get to some of these comments here. I see a few. I see you, Fuqua. Ah, that's all right there. More yards. I know. Compiler, though. Compensation agreed. 5th round pick? Yeah, that's nothing. Yeah, I would have done that too. Only second to Sean McCoy. Shady McCoy. Look at that. Yeah, he had do you know what? Let me see. He's not a Hall of Famer either, but yeah, and by the way, LaShawn McCoy, I know he's gotten into the podcast game and all that. Yeah. Not good. Yeah, he led in rushing one year. 73 touchdowns. 1607, 1319. Nah. Yeah, he's not a Hall of Famer, but yeah, no. Gore had a better career. Longer career, of course. But then Gore had a longer. Please. Gore probably had a longer career than. What it was Emmett. Emmett was 89 to 04, maybe. That's 15 years. Let me see. My memory can't remember a lot of things like Sharks who score goals. I remember it. That's all right. Val, it's all good. It's all good. No, I know he is third time all rushing. That's for sure. Listen. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Marshall Lynch Beastquake stiff arm during. Oh, no, that was good too. Good one, Fuqua. That was really good. I remember that. Sparks today's trade, Buffalo. Okay. If you make it to the top 3 all-time position, shoe in. Yeah. Nah, you know what? I could see that. I don't know. I mean, put it this way. When you think of him in the upper when you think of, put it this way, the top 10 running backs of all time, is Frank Gore on that list? Answer that one, honestly, the novice. He is not. I could run through the top 10 in my head, and not even rushing. Campbell's up there. I'm sorry. He's nowhere even near the top 25 in rushing. Campbell, I think, had like 8,900 yards. If I had to do top 10, Emmett, Eric Dickerson, Barry Sanders, Jim Brown. That's 4. O.J. Simpson, Franco Harris. Did I say Barry Sanders? I think I did, right? Let's do that again. All right, I got to start. Jim Brown, Walter Payton. I didn't even mention Walter Payton. Jim Brown, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, Eric Dickerson, OJ. Do I got to go in the rushing list now? I don't want to. Do I put Adrian Peterson there? He was no joke, though. Listen, Adrian Peterson was better than Frank Gore. Do I put Curtis Martin ahead of him? Or Jerome Bettis? I guess you have to. I understand he has more yards than those guys, but top 10. I said OJ. Yeah, to me, it doesn't crack the top 10. You know what? Here it is. And Derrick Henry's had a lot. Derrick Henry's going to be in the top 10 before it's all said and done. Thank you, Fugo, for that assist. Derrick Henry's going to be in the top 10. No, it's a good debate. That's why we're here. Oh, you got that right, Reed. If Bo Jackson wasn't injured, he would definitely be on that too. Thank you, Val. Fun fact. Oh, look at that. That is a fun fact. Good one. Yeah, Jim Brown. Oh, Marcus Allen is another one too. Yes. Thank you, Reed. No, Jim Brown. I mean, listen, you can't have a running back list. Jim Brown has to be first. I understand they got more yards, whatever, but Jim Brown, I would have to think, and I never watched him, obviously. And most football experts say Jim Brown is the best football player ever. Ever. No matter what position. And you know what? I agree. That was men against boys, that guy. If we thought about it like that, no current players would get in there. Yeah, no, without question. Well, no player. Yeah, I get it. But that's me. I'm a small guy room. See, I'm the same guy, the novice, that Craig Biggio got over 3,000 hits. He's in the Hall of Fame. In my eyes, he's not a Hall of Famer. Good one, Dermot Thomas. Dermot Thomas top 10? I don't even think he cracks the top 10, though. Yep. And he also ran over Brian Bosworth that same game, too. And Bio, you're right. Gail said that was Barry Sanders before Barry Sanders. Absolutely. No, Walter Payton. Listen, yeah, I would think Walter Payton was no joke. And the thing about Walter Payton is he was a great all-around back. Would run you over, would run past you, catch the ball out of the backfield, block. I mean, as complete as it gets. Yes, absolutely. Oh, I'd say yes. The thing about OJ was a great runner. Just like Eric Dickerson was a great runner. Eric Dickerson had those strides. He had that. I mean, he was a gazelle. And that's what O.J. Simpson was. O.J. Simpson had strides. And that's where he was great. And he could cut. Fantastic. Yes, Earl Campbell, Reed, 100%. No, I love this. This is great dialogue. And let me tell you, if you want me to do more, I could do more lives like that where we could just talk. Because I understand I want to have a theme. Now, the podcast is separate because podcast is podcast. But if you want to do more of an open forum, let me know. No, you're right. Reed, he had one of the best lines. If you see the NFL films, he says it best. Give me 18 inches of daylight. That's all I need. And when you hear that, you're like, oh, okay. Oh, Joe Morris, yeah. 86 Giants, of course. Yep, like Marcus Allen. Absolutely. And hey, both from USC. Cam Jordan, all right. Yeah, he's been around a long time, Cam Jordan. Absolutely. All right, guys, let me battery's low. Yeah, it's over there. But yeah, we'll do more of this. And matter of fact, I'm doing my 31 days of live streaming tomorrow. Maybe we'll do that. We'll go back and forth. I may be outside. I may be indoors. If I'm indoors, great. We'll go through it. Yeah, the student body. Yeah, exactly. But no, we'll tomorrow you'll see me live somewhere. I don't know what time. It's going to be random, as you know, and even into the weekend. But next week, you already know, Monday, podcast pregame, podcast 11 a.m., chopping up about sports. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for stopping by. as you know, in the blood and the DNA, talking sports since birth. As long as I'm in front of the microphone or camera, I promise to deliver nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury, thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that's happening in the world of sports. So, from the South Bronx, South Beach, South Central, South Pacific, and all points beyond, people, anything else? Any last-minute comments? Now's your opportunity. Feel free. But I'm just any last-minute stuff here pop up. Let's see. I think that's it. All right. All right, my good people. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday into the weekend. I'll see you tomorrow. Some bat time, some bat channel. Now you know which channel. As I continue this journey, doing 31 days of live streams here for the month of March. But as always, people, thank you for the support, for the love and support back to you guys and gals. And until next time, everybody, on the flip.